You think we're about to meet our spouses?
Maybe.
Maybe it's each other. That'd be a hoot. Couldn't tell. She wasn't me. This is real. Not everything here is a lie. Couldn't tell. She wasn't me. This is real. Not everything here is a lie.
Hello, Mudbeard/Lumen official employees. I'm here today to bring another Severance video. I wanted to start off by addressing a poll I made. See, I posted a poll on my channel to ask all of you if you thought that Ricken was actually the one who wrote the fourth appendix, / the Book of Dieter. Now, this theory spawned from the sense that a lot of the words used and a lot of the juxtaposition between seemingly sincere writing and passage to something so exaggerated only a clever wordsmith would be able to come up with, kind of get the idea that the fourth appendix, the hidden book that nobody has ever seen and never been on the severed floor before, was actually written by Ricken. We see in the previous episode that Ricken was approached by Natalie to see about making some alterations to Ricken's book that better fit in Innie's needs. Now, what if one of the first implementations of Ricken and Lumen's combined works is actually the fourth appendix? Now, when I posted this theory, 61% of you had said that Ricken was the one who in fact wrote the book. And I also fell into this line of thinking as well. But in the recent episode of Severance, I think we got confirmation that that is not the case. See, Ricken, using a typewriter of course, is still working on what alterations he can make to the book. We get an awesome conversation between him and Devin, and we get to see Devin yet again being the voice of reason and screaming what the audience is trying to say, and Ricken throwing a little bit of logic into the situation, showing that he's not completely foolish. See, the wool isn't completely pulled over his eyes in regards to Lumen. Looks more like he's just after the financial security that would come with collaborating with Lumen in this way. Both making reasonable points, however, considering Lumen could actually involve life or death, I think Devin holds the high ground here. Either way, I'm pretty sure this scene confirms that Ricken did not write the fourth appendix, unless there's some timey-wimey stuff going on and the Woes Hollow episode actually took place way later in the series. That'd be an interesting theory for someone to put together, but I think Mark's reintegration timeline kinda ruins that theory altogether. Speaking of Mark, I wanted to ask a question. Do you guys think Mark is the main character? See, the reason I ask this is because in a lot of shows, the opening shot of a character, whoever is initially introduced to us on the screen, unless it's a shot of a threat and or the world as a whole, usually if the show starts with a character, it clues us into the fact that this character is going to stick around for the entire series and we will be following their perspective. Shows have done this and stuck it all the way through like Lost, and shows have done this and given up halfway through like Fear the Walking Dead. Severance opens up with the perspective of Helly. We see a lot of the initial first season, Helly is the audience surrogate. She's asking the questions we're all wondering, she's confused by the things that are confusing us. However, if you take a step back and look at Mark's storyline, he is also a top contender to be one of the main characters. I'd argue, considering where he's at in the story, it wouldn't make sense to open up with him. But considering the narrative you're trying to tell, you still want to open up with someone who's new to the process as a whole. So I think Helly, while being an instrumental character as a whole and very important to the series, is not the main character. I'm pretty sure our protagonist is Mark, but utilizing Helly's narrative at this certain point in time is arguably the best way to introduce the audience to the series as a whole. But given the plot we've seen so far, and if Mark is the main character, does that mean that our girl Helly is doomed? See, Helly has built quite an aversion to her outie. There is such conflict there that I highly doubt there's ever a chance they will ever see eye to eye. And while reintegration is always on the table, I have to wonder, would either of them really be down to try it in the first place? Contextually, you'd think,
I'm not going back down there. My Annie who tried to kill me, and then the other one tried to kill me. They're fucking animals.
not so much. And if that is the case, Lumen was totally fine having Helena take the place as Helly to kind of keep Mark happy until he could finish Cold Harbor, which means they were okay with Helly ceasing to exist. And now things have occurred, which means Lumen has no choice but to allow Helly to return. And while that does spark some interesting tension between Mark and Helly, Mark's still trying to figure out who we can trust, and that's gotta be a traumatizing experience altogether. He's been basically violated. It does leave you wondering, once Mark finishes Cold Harbor, what's to keep Helly from ever returning? Helena, as soon as she gets control again, which you already know she hates giving up control, she is vocally opposed ever returning back there. So once Cold Harbor's finished, is that it for her? See, again, I get reintegration is a thing. We know Mark's been building up the percentage on Cold Harbor. And while the innies could attempt to fight back and give the innies control as opposed to the outies, we've already seen how that works and how much more ahead of the game Lumen is.
They are smarter than us, okay? They know everything.
And considering how large Lumen is as a whole, I can't even see a version of Helly living on as an outie version of Helena if she happens to escape in some way and pretending to be her, because so many people are weird there and they'll be able to spot the differences immediately. Cobell did with Mark, so even if the innies win in some way, unless they're able to take down every single member of Lumen, there's no real happy ending to Helly's story. This could potentially explain why when they're showing the shadow selves, Helly's neck is broke. Or maybe she's just having an attitude, but it could also be alluding to her potential demise, or her potential attempt at just taking Helena's life. Speaking of the shadow selves, if those are a physical property and not some manifestation of a simulation or a floor or whatever have you, or even the chip, is it possible that the Gemma we saw is similar to those shadow selves? If Gemma didn't have the context of some of her wellness professionalism, using her words and the environment she was in, she would be just as creepy as a lot of those shadow selves, in my opinion. Is it possible that whatever's going down in the exports hall could eventually reveal the connection to the shadow selves / Gemma's state as a whole? And is this weird shell of a human being the worst case scenario that our innies outcomes could come to? Helly is doomed. Could this also potentially be her ending? There's too many narrative threads that just lead to her not being happy. Or so I thought. See, there's one narrative they can implement, which I think would not only perfectly fit the character of Helly / Helena, but it would also allow her to have a bittersweet ending. Again, I don't think she'll have a perfectly happy ending, but in this case, at least she gets to live as Helly. See, my theory is that use your own imagination to build what other narrative bridges you want to build. But let's say eventually Lumen gets to the point where Helena and the conflict between them and the administration becomes too much to deal with. Maybe even Cobell's side wins and the Egans are knocked out as a whole, but they still want to Egan around just to save face. Who could that Egan be but Helly? See, what if they throw in a method where Helly is now taking over the body of Helena and Helena ceases to exist because she would cause too much conflict being an actual Egan? Versus Helly, who really just wants to be free, now has full access to Lumen's wealth, resources, riches, everything she would want to go live a free life. All she would have to do is be the public face of Lumen. And something tells me she would only agree to this if there was either a stop to the severing process as a whole, or Lumen really leaned away from all the shady stuff they were doing. With Cobell being in charge, that doesn't seem like it would be the case, but we still don't know her full story. Either way, the need for Helly to represent the Egans could not only mean Helena is out of there, but it means Helly gets to live, which is so poetic considering Helena, all she wants is to be free. What better narrative than Helena's freedom being within Lumen as an innie and Helly's freedom being with Lumen as an outie? And no, I'm not saying Helena continues to exist in this fake scenario I created. Helena's definitely out of there and it's just Helly. But other than that, I think I can't really see any other way Helly would get a happy ending. Unless you guys want Mark and her to just drive away somewhere into the sunset, hold each other's hands. Anything else seems like it would be a little bit too Disney. But I want to know what you guys think. Is Helly's story doomed to end in misery? Or is there a way that she could have a happy ending while still fitting within the narrative as a whole and not totally changing the genre? Go ahead and let me know down below. Appreciate all your guys' input. Hope you guys take care of yourselves out there. I've really been enjoying the season. Appreciate the feedback either way. Have a good rest of your guys' day.